Hey nail friends, welcome to my channel. Do you want to turn your passion for nails into a successful career? The $20 billion nail industry is booming, y'all. Do you know about the required training to become a licensed nail tech? I'm Jenna and I'm a licensed nail tech in California. Let me tell you what is involved in completing your training hours to become a licensed professional. So let's just get into some things. In California, you have to complete 400 hours before applying for your state board license. And here's how those hours break down into 5 categories. Number 1 is 60 hours of mani and pedi services. That basically breaks down into doing 30 services of each. You're gonna perform those services probably on other students, or if your school allows it, you'll have clients that come in, you can do those services. And if your state allows it, you may be able to accept tips for those services, which is nice because they can go towards more nail supplies, because we always need more nail supplies, y'all. All right, so number 2 is 10 hours of laws and regulation. And those hours include studying what your state allows and doesn't allow in your industry. It's important to know those things because if you break any of those laws and regulations, you can be fined, and those fines aren't cheap. And worst case scenario is you could lose your license and then you're not legally allowed to do what you love anymore. So you want to follow those rules and regulations, and you also want to keep that booklet on deck in your workspace. In California, it's required to have in your salon, and it's also just good to have on deck for reference if you need to go back and check to make sure you're following and complying with your state's rules. All right, so number three is 25 hours of health and safety. And that includes knowing the chemistry of the chemicals that we're using in the salon. We are using all sorts of chemicals while we're working. We're using acetone to remove products. We're using alcohol to dehydrate nails. We're using disinfectants and cleaners. For acrylic, you're using monomer. You need to know what's in these products, how they work, and it's good to know this because then you can prevent doing damage to yourself or your clients. You don't want to mix the wrong chemicals and cause chemical burns or allergic reactions to the products that you're using in your salon. So let's move on to number 4, and that is 10 hours of disinfection and sanitation. And that is basically studying the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, and sterilization. All of these are different steps that are part of the sanitation process. And you want to know which parts of these steps you need to perform for certain services and things that you're using in your salon. As far as one-time use products like buffers and files, you want to throw those out after one client. You don't reuse those on other clients because you're mixing stuff, and you don't want to mix nail stuff and skin and debris from one client to the next. We're using sharp objects like nippers, and clippers. And if you clip a client and they bleed, you don't want to spread any germs from one client to the next if somebody has some kind of blood disorder. So it's very important to know the difference between all 4 and how to apply them for the different steps of your services and just throughout your salon day, and keeping your salon clean and sanitized and disinfected and ready for a new client. All right, so number 5 is 10 hours of bacteriology, nail anatomy, and physiology. And if you want to be a nail tech, you need to know the parts of the nail, what their functions are, what they do. You need to know how a hand moves, how a wrist moves up to the elbow. Same with pedicures and toes. You want to know the bones, how they move, how you can manipulate them, because when you're doing services, you need to make sure that you're comfortable and your client is comfortable as well. So you need to know the nail anatomy, as well as what to look for as far as nail disorders. Like, you don't want to do services if If a client has fungus or bacteria that can be spread easily, you need to recommend them to a medical physician who can diagnose what's going on, take care of the problem so that they can come back and have their services performed. You never want to do services on somebody who has a nail disease that hasn't been treated. Just for the safety of yourself, the safety of your client, and the safety of your other clients. You also want to know the different nail conditions. These aren't necessarily things that are going on with the nail that prevents you from doing a service. You can still perform these services, but a client might have rigid nails and you don't want to over buff them because you don't want to do damage to the nail bed. So there's just certain things that you want to look for and be aware of that you will learn during that part of your training. Additional training that involved is what to prepare for when you're actually out in the industry. So that would be customer service, sales, record keeping, basic tax filing, what goes on the daily working in a salon, what you have to do to keep up a salon, what products you need. I definitely and highly recommend that you, while you're in school, you ask as many questions as possible and get as much knowledge that's what you're paying for. So get as much knowledge as you can. Any question that you have, make sure you ask. Don't be afraid, because once you get out into the salon, nobody has time to answer any of your questions. Everybody's busy doing clients. You're kind of just like tossed out there to the wolves and shown around, and hopefully you can fend for yourself. Do as many services that you can just to prepare you for different clientele, what to look for. It'll make your services go faster because the more that you do it, the more repetitive it gets, the easier it becomes. Now you know what the training includes to become a licensed nail tech in California. With hard work and dedication and lots of practice, you will be on your way to giving your clients beautiful nails and creating a successful nail career. So what are you waiting for? Like and subscribe to my channel for more tips and tricks, and invest in yourself today.